The information provided in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute professional career, legal, or financial advice. Career growth and salary negotiations involve complex variables and individual circumstances that vary significantly. While we discuss historical trends and potential outcomes based on industry data, these are not guarantees of future success or specific results. You should conduct your own due diligence and consult with qualified human resources professionals, legal counsel, or career mentors before making significant professional decisions. The American corporate ladder was not built for you. For decades, the structural blueprints of the U.S. workforce were designed around a mid-century social model that assumed a very specific type of worker with a very specific set of domestic supports. Today, despite making up nearly half of the labor force and earning more university degrees than their male counterparts, women in the United States still face a documented glass ceiling that is reinforced by the broken rung phenomenon. Statistically, for every 100 men promoted to manager, only 87 women are promoted, and for women of color, that number drops to 73. If you feel like you are working twice as hard to get half as far, you aren't imagining it. You are navigating a system that often penalizes the very traits it claims to value. In this deep dive masterclass, we are pulling back the curtain on the unspoken rules of the American executive suite. We are going beyond the surface-level advice of just working harder or leaning in. By the end of this series, you will understand the precise architectural flaws of the modern workplace and, more importantly, the advanced navigational strategies used by the top 1% of female earners to bypass traditional barriers and claim their seat at the table. This video addresses the most pressing crisis facing professional women today: the stagnation of the middle management trap. Many women find themselves stuck in a cycle of high performance without high visibility. You are hitting your KPIs, you are the most reliable person on your team, and yet, when the high-stakes projects or senior promotions are handed out, you are overlooked for someone with half your technical expertise. We are going to solve this by shifting your entire professional paradigm from a meritocracy-based mindset to a strategic influence mindset. We are moving away from the hope that your work will speak for itself, because in the U.S. workforce, silence is often interpreted as satisfaction with the status quo. To understand where we are going, we must first analyze the historical trends of the American gender pay gap and leadership deficit. Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics continues to show that women earn roughly 84 cents for every dollar earned by men. However, when we adjust for the controlled gap, looking at men and women in the same job titles with the same qualifications, the gap narrows but the promotion disparity remains wide. This suggests that the issue isn't just about what you are paid today, but the velocity at which you move through the hierarchy. A woman starting her career today could potentially lose over $400,000 in cumulative earnings over a 40-year career, simply due to the compounding effect of delayed early career promotions. This is the cost of the broken rung. Consider a case study of a major Silicon Valley tech firm. Internal audits revealed that women were consistently rated higher on performance reviews for execution and reliability, yet men were rated higher on potential. This potential bias is a silent career killer. Managers often subconsciously project leadership capability onto individuals who fit a traditional, often masculine, stereotype of authority. To combat this, high-achieving women must master the art of signaling. Signaling is not about bragging. It is about the strategic communication of your impact, in a language that senior leadership recognizes as executive-ready. One of the most critical components of this masterclass is the deconstruction of the perfectionism trap. In the American workforce, there is a historical trend where women feel they must meet 100% of the qualifications before applying for a role, whereas men often apply when they meet only 60%. This confidence gap is frequently misdiagnosed as a personal failing of women, but it is actually a rational response to a system that historically penalizes female mistakes more harshly than male ones. In this series, we will detail step by step how to transition from a mindset of total preparedness to one of strategic risk-taking. We will explore how to build a professional safety net that allows you to fail forward, a luxury that has long been afforded to your male colleagues. We will also dive deep into the mechanics of sponsorship versus mentorship. Many women are over-mentored but under-sponsored. A mentor will give you advice behind closed doors, but a sponsor will mention your name when you are not in the room. In the competitive landscape of U.S. Fortune 500 companies, a sponsor is the single most effective tool for career acceleration. We will provide a granular framework for identifying potential sponsors within your organization, and more importantly, how to provide value to them so the relationship is mutually beneficial. This involves understanding the political economy of your workplace, knowing who holds the social capital, and how to align your professional goals with their strategic objectives. Furthermore, we must address the specific challenges of the double bind. This is the psychological phenomenon where women in leadership are often perceived as either competent but cold, or likable but soft. Navigating this narrow corridor of acceptable behavior requires a high level of emotional intelligence and linguistic precision. We will analyze the specific verbal cues and body language strategies that project authority without triggering the subconscious biases of those around you. We will look at how to claim physical space in boardrooms, how to handle interruptions effectively, and how to use the power of the pause to command attention. The American workforce is currently undergoing a massive shift with the rise of remote and hybrid work models. While this offers flexibility, it also introduces the risk of proximity bias, where those who are physically present in the office are prioritized for promotions. For many women who utilize flexible work arrangements to balance domestic responsibilities, this creates a new barrier. We will outline a comprehensive strategy for maintaining high visibility in a digital-first environment, ensuring that your contributions are recognized regardless of your physical location. This includes mastering the art of the virtual update and building a digital personal brand that precedes you in every meeting. This deep dive is not about changing who you are. It is about changing how you interface with a system that was not originally built with you in mind. It is about moving from a defensive posture to an offensive strategy. We will examine the data behind the motherhood penalty and the fatherhood bonus, providing strategies for navigating the complex legal and social landscape of parental leave and career reentry. We will discuss how to negotiate for more than just a base salary, looking at equity, performance bonuses, and professional development stipends as levers for long-term wealth creation. By the time we finish all 10 parts of this masterclass, you will have a comprehensive, data-backed blueprint for your professional journey. You will no longer be guessing why you aren't moving forward. You will have the tools to diagnose the specific bottlenecks in your career and the tactical maneuvers to clear them. This is the definitive guide to navigating the American workforce with intention, authority, and strategic brilliance. We are starting with the foundation of self-advocacy and working our way up to the highest levels of institutional influence. Prepare to challenge everything you thought you knew about professional success. This is about more than just a job title. It is about the systemic acquisition of power and the financial freedom that follows. Let's begin the transition from being the best-kept secret in your company to being its most indispensable leader. To bridge the gap between being a high performer and an indispensable leader, we must first dismantle the myth of the silent meritocracy. In the United States workforce as of 2026, the data indicates that technical proficiency is merely the baseline for entry into the mid-career stage. The actual propellant for upward mobility is a concept known as strategic visibility. Imagine a professional named Sarah, a senior project manager at a mid-sized fintech firm in Austin, Texas. Sarah is the person everyone goes to when a launch is failing. She works 10-hour days, her spreadsheets are flawless, and her team meets every deadline. Yet, when a director-level opening appears, Sarah isn't even on the shortlist. Instead, the role goes to a colleague who spends half as much time on execution but twice as much time in the offices of the executive leadership team. Sarah is suffering from the invisibility of the reliable. Because she solves problems before they reach the leadership level, the leadership doesn't even know the problems existed, and therefore they don't associate Sarah with the solution. This is a documented historical trend where women are socialized to be the office housekeepers, the ones who take the notes, organize the holiday party, and ensure the gears are turning. While these tasks are essential for the organization, they are rarely rewarded with promotions. To counteract this, we must implement a 3-step strategic visibility framework. Step 1 is the audit of impact. You must look at your daily task list and categorize every item into 2 buckets: operational maintenance and strategic value. Operational maintenance keeps the lights on. Strategic value moves the needle on the company's annual goals. If you are spending more than 70% of your time on maintenance, you are effectively capping your career growth. Step 2 is the art of the escalated update. Instead of sending a weekly email that says everything is on track, you must pivot to highlighting the strategic hurdles you have cleared. For example, instead of saying the project is on schedule, you communicate that you successfully navigated a resource conflict that saved the department $15,000 in potential delays. This shifts the narrative from you being a passive participant to being an active protector of company assets. Step 3 is the external validation loop. In the 2026 labor market, Your internal reputation is only half the battle. You must cultivate a presence in industry-specific forums, LinkedIn groups, and professional associations. When your boss sees your name mentioned in a trade publication, or hears a competitor mention your work at a conference, your internal stock price skyrockets. Let us look at a case study involving a director of marketing at a Chicago-based retail giant. By analyzing historical trends within her firm, she realized that the executive committee prioritized data-driven growth over creative branding. She pivoted her entire reporting structure to lead with customer acquisition cost and lifetime value metrics. She didn't just do better marketing. She translated her marketing success into the language of the CFO. The potential outcome was a seat at the quarterly strategy table within 6 months. This is the difference between working hard and working loud. However, visibility without social capital is a dangerous position. Social capital in the American workforce is the currency of trust and reciprocity. It is built in the hallways over coffee and in the 5 minutes before a Zoom call officially starts. For many women, particularly those managing domestic responsibilities or working in a hybrid environment, these micro-interactions are often the first things sacrificed to maximize productivity. This is a strategic error. In 2026, as AI automates more technical tasks, the human element of corporate politics becomes the primary differentiator for leadership roles. Consider the scenario of a software engineer named Chloe in Seattle. She is brilliant at coding but skips every optional team social and logs off the second a meeting ends to maximize her output. When a lead role opens up, the hiring manager chooses a candidate with slightly lower technical skills, but a much stronger rapport with the cross-functional teams. The manager justifies this by saying the other candidate is a better cultural fit. Cultural fit is often a coded term for social capital. To build this capital, you must practice intentional networking within your own organization. This doesn't mean aimless socializing. It means identifying 3 key stakeholders who are 2 levels above you and initiating brief, high-value interactions. Ask for their perspective on a broad industry trend, not for a favor. You are looking to be perceived as a peer in thought, even if you are not yet a peer in rank. We also need to address the linguistic patterns that undermine authority in the U.S. corporate environment. Historically, women have been encouraged to use hedging language to avoid appearing aggressive. Phrases like "I just wanted to check" or "I feel like we might want to," or "does that make sense?" act as verbal erasers. They diminish the impact of your ideas before they are even processed by the listener. By removing these qualifiers, you project a level of decisiveness that is associated with executive presence. Case studies of successful female CEOs often show a common trait. They speak in declarative sentences. They don't ask if their ideas make sense. They assume they do and wait for the counter-argument. Imagine if every time you spoke in a meeting, you treated your words as a limited resource. You wouldn't waste them on apologies or fillers. You would state your point, provide the data, and stop talking. The silence that follows a strong statement is where your authority lives. Most people are uncomfortable with silence and will rush to fill it, often by agreeing with you or asking for more of your insight. This is a tactical use of psychological pressure that high-level negotiators use every day. But even with visibility and social capital, there is a final hurdle in this foundational stage: the trap of the subject matter expert. In many American industries, if you are too good at your specific job, your manager has a financial and operational incentive to keep you right where you are. Promoting you would create a hole that is too hard to fill. To avoid being pigeonholed, you must become a talent multiplier. You must show that you can train others to do what you do. By documenting your processes and mentoring a successor, you remove the risk of your own promotion. You are showing the organization that your value isn't just in your personal output, but in your ability to scale excellence across a team. This is the hallmark of a leader, not just a worker. As we move into 2026, the complexity of these dynamics is only increasing. The intersection of technological shifts and evolving workplace norms requires a more sophisticated playbook than what was taught in business school 10 years ago. You are not just managing your career. You are managing an intellectual property portfolio where you are the primary asset. This requires a level of detached, strategic thinking that separates your personal worth from your professional maneuvers. We have established the need for visibility, the importance of social capital, and the danger of being too indispensable in a single role. But what happens when you do everything right and still hit a wall? What do you do when the bias isn't just subconscious but structural? How do you negotiate for the resources you need when the budget is supposedly frozen, or when your male peers are being given opportunities that are being withheld from you? The answer lies in the mechanics of high-stakes negotiation and the psychological warfare of the corporate boardroom. In the next part, we are going to dive into the specific scripts and data-driven tactics for salary and resource negotiation that most women are never told exist. We are going to look at how to turn a no into a not yet, and how to use market volatility as your primary leverage. The shift from manager to executive starts with the first time you refuse to accept a standardized offer. If you think you've seen the full extent of your leverage, you haven't even scratched the surface of what is possible when you understand the hidden economics of your own value. The hidden economics of your value start with a fundamental shift in how you perceive the negotiation table. In the American workforce of 2026, a salary negotiation is not a request for a favor. It is a clinical, data-driven adjustment of a business contract. Historical trends show that women who approach negotiation with a communal orientation, meaning they frame their request in terms of how it benefits the team, the department, or the company's bottom line, experience significantly better potential outcomes and lower social pushback than those who frame it as a purely personal pursuit. This is the relational framing technique. It involves shifting the language from what I want to what the business requires to maintain the current trajectory of success. Imagine a professional named Maya, a senior operations manager at a logistics firm in New Jersey. It is early 2026, and the industry is reeling from a sudden shift in global supply chain regulations. Maya has spent the last 6 months automating the compliance workflow, saving the company 400 hours of manual labor per month. When she enters her performance review, she doesn't lead with her need for a raise. Instead, she presents a single-page impact portfolio. This document does not list her responsibilities. It lists her conversions. She demonstrates that her automation efforts have a market value equivalent to 2 full-time junior analysts, which would cost the company approximately $160,000 in salary and benefits. By framing her request for a $20,000 adjustment as a fraction of the value she has already secured, she transforms herself from a cost center into a profit generator. The first step in this masterclass level of negotiation is the construction of your internal replacement cost analysis. Most professionals look at market averages on sites like Glassdoor or PayScale, but these are often lagging indicators. In 2026, the real leverage lies in understanding what it would cost your specific employer to replace you today. This includes the cost of a headhunter fee, which is typically 20 to 30% of the base salary, the 3 to 6 months of lost productivity during the search, and the 4 months it takes for a new hire to reach full competency. When you quantify this, you realize that your company is often looking at a $60,000 to $80,000 loss if you walk out the door. Your request for a 10% raise is, from a purely financial perspective, the most conservative and fiscally responsible option for the company. Step 2 is the deployment of the dual-track negotiation strategy. This is essential when you encounter the common corporate roadblock of the salary freeze. In the current economic climate of 2026, many U.S. firms use standardized budget caps to shut down conversations. To bypass this, you must negotiate for non-liquid assets that have high long-term career value. This includes executive coaching budgets, which can cost upwards of $10,000, or an accelerated title change. In the American corporate hierarchy, a title is a portable asset. Negotiating for a senior director title today, even without an immediate salary jump, increases your market value by 15 to 20% the moment you step into the external job market. You are essentially asking the company to give you a currency authority that costs them $0 in immediate cash flow, but yields you massive dividends in future leverage. Step 3 is the mastery of the diagnostic question. When you receive a no, most people retract. A strategic leader leans in with curiosity. You ask, what specific business metrics would I need to hit over the next 6 months to make this a yes? This forces the manager to provide a roadmap. You are no longer negotiating over a feeling. You are co-creating a performance contract. By documenting this response, you have effectively eliminated the ambiguity of your next review. You are moving the goalpost to a fixed position that you have the power to reach. Let's look at a case study of an HR director in Charlotte, North Carolina. She was denied a salary increase due to a departmental merger. Instead of accepting the stalemate, she negotiated for a specialized certification in AI-driven talent management, fully funded by the company, along with 4 hours of dedicated study time per week. 6 months later, she was the only person in the organization with that specific technical credential. When the company began its next round of executive restructuring, she wasn't just safe from layoffs. She was the only candidate qualified to lead the new AI integration task force, resulting in a 30% salary adjustment that bypassed the standard HR bands entirely. We also have to consider the psychological concept of the anchor point. In the United States, the person who mentions the first number usually sets the psychological boundaries of the conversation. However, as a woman in a system with historical wage gaps, anchoring too low can be devastating. In 2026, many states have passed salary transparency laws, meaning you often have access to the broad range for your role. Your goal is to anchor at the top of the second quartile, backed by a specificity buffer. Instead of asking for $120,000, you ask for $122,700. Data suggests that precise numbers signal a higher level of preparation and research, making the other party less likely to counter with a significant lowball offer. Imagine if you treated every no as a data point rather than a rejection. In the high-stakes environment of American business, a no is often just the beginning of the real conversation. It reveals the employer's current pain points and budget constraints. If they say they don't have the budget for a raise, they are telling you that cash flow is their primary stressor. You can then pivot to negotiating for equity, performance-based bonuses, or a 4-day work week that allows you to consult externally. You are looking for the intersection where your needs meet their current limitations. Furthermore, we must address the strategic use of the BATNA, the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. You should never enter a high-stakes negotiation without knowing exactly what your move is if the talk fails. This isn't about making threats. It's about the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your market value is validated by external interest. In 2026, the most successful female executives maintain a warm network of recruiters, even when they are happy in their roles. This creates a psychological safety net that prevents you from settling for less than you are worth out of a sense of scarcity. The American workforce rewards those who understand that value is subjective and negotiable. It is not enough to be excellent, you must be expensive. High price tags in the corporate world are often equated with high quality. When you under-negotiate, you are inadvertently signaling that your work is a commodity rather than a strategic asset. By using the frameworks of relational framing, replacement cost analysis, and diagnostic questioning, you are positioning yourself as a premium partner in the company's success. But negotiation is only the external manifestation of your power. The real engine of career velocity is the internal political structure of your organization. You can be the best negotiator in the world, but if the people with the power to approve your requests don't know who you are or what you stand for, you are fighting an uphill battle. There is a hidden layer of corporate governance that operates through whispers, closed-door sponsorships, and the strategic distribution of high-visibility opportunities. In the next part, we are going to break down the architecture of influence. We will explore how to identify the real power brokers in your company, who are often not the people with the biggest titles, and how to build a coalition of advocates that will fight for your advancement when you aren't even in the room. This is the transition from individual contributor to organizational architect, and the tactics we will cover will change the way you see every meeting, every email, and every professional relationship you have. To master the architecture of influence, you must first accept that the official organizational chart is often a decorative document. In the high-velocity American workplace of 2026, power does not always flow vertically. It flows toward the centers of information and decision-making. To navigate this, we utilize the power mapping technique. This is the process of identifying the shadow organization, the network of informal relationships that actually dictates which projects get funded and who gets promoted. Historical trends suggest that while men often naturally gravitate toward these informal power hubs through sports or social clubs, women frequently rely on formal structures, which puts them at a strategic disadvantage. Imagine a professional named Elena, a senior product designer for a health tech giant in Denver. In 2026, her company is undergoing a massive pivot toward generative AI integration. Elena is the most talented designer on the team, but her manager is a traditionalist who is skeptical of the new tech. If Elena only follows the formal chain of command, her innovative ideas will die on her manager's desk. Instead, Elena performs a power map. She identifies 3 key stakeholders: the head of sales, who is desperate for new features to meet quarterly targets, the chief of staff, who has the CEO's ear, and a lead engineer who is a known internal influencer. By mapping their interests against their influence, Elena realizes that the head of sales is her most potent ally. She begins sharing low-fidelity prototypes with him, showing how her designs could solve his specific customer churn problems. When the head of sales mentions Elena's work in an executive meeting, he isn't just giving her a compliment. He is acting as a high-powered advocate who bypasses her direct manager's gatekeeping. Step 1 of power mapping is the stakeholder audit. You must list every person who has a say in your career progression and rate them on 2 axes: influence, their ability to move the needle, and sentiment, how they currently feel about you. The danger zone is the high influence/low sentiment quadrant. These are your blockers. Your strategy for 2026 is not to win them over with kindness, but to neutralize them through professional alignment. This means finding a way for your success to look like their success. Case studies in corporate turnarounds show that blockers often become allies when they realize that opposing you will cost them social capital with higher-level executives. Step 2 is the creation of your personal board of directors. In the modern U.S. workforce, a single mentor is no longer sufficient. You need a diversified portfolio of advisors. This board should consist of 4 specific roles. First, the sponsor. This person must be at least 2 levels above you and have a seat at the table where your future is discussed. They are the ones who trade their political capital for your advancement. Second, the connector. This individual has a broad, horizontal network across the company. They are the ones who tell you about a new department being formed before it's even posted on the internal job board. Third, the challenger. This person will tell you when your presentation is weak or when you are playing too small. They are your quality control. Fourth, the truth teller. This is often a peer or a former colleague who understands the hidden weather of the office, the gossip, the upcoming layoffs, and the real reasons why the last director was let go. Recruiting these members requires a specific value-first approach. You do not ask, "Will you be my sponsor?" That is a high-pressure request that usually results in a polite decline. Instead, you offer a strategic gift. For a potential sponsor, this might be a 2-paragraph briefing on a competitor's move that you noticed. For a connector, it might be an introduction to someone in your external network. By initiating the relationship with value, you invoke the psychological law of reciprocity. In the American business context, people are far more likely to invest in you if they feel you are already an asset to their own professional ecosystem. Next, we must analyze the sponsorship engine. While mentorship is about development, sponsorship is about deployment. Data from the 2026 Women in the Workplace report indicates that women with active sponsors are 60% more likely to receive a stretch assignment than those without. A stretch assignment is a high-visibility, high-risk project that serves as a proving ground for executive leadership. To get these roles, you must manage your reputation as a safe bet for the sponsor. This means you don't just do the work, you provide the sponsor with the social proof they need to defend you in closed-door meetings. You provide them with easy-to-digest bullet points of your achievements that they can drop into casual conversations with the VP. You are essentially providing them with the marketing material for your own promotion. Imagine if you viewed every meeting not as a place to report status, but as a theater for the distribution of social credit. When you are in a meeting and a colleague makes a great point, you amplify it. "I agree with Marcus," and to build on that, Elena's data from last week actually supports this move. By giving credit to others, you are signaling that you are an information hub. This makes people want to include you in more meetings, which increases your surface area for luck and influence. This is a subtle but powerful historical trend used by effective leaders. They build influence by becoming the person who validates the influence of others. However, a major pitfall in the 2026 landscape is the administrative burden. Women are still statistically more likely to be asked to help out with non-promotable tasks, the office housework we touched on earlier. The strategic architect handles this with the priority pivot. When asked to organize the office move or manage the summer intern program, you respond with, "I'd love to ensure that's successful. Since my current focus is on the Q3 revenue growth project, which of those deliverables should I deprioritize to make room for this?" This forces the solicitor to acknowledge the high-value work you are doing and puts a price tag on your time. It reframes the help as a strategic trade-off rather than a favor. Furthermore, we must address the chief of staff effect. In many American corporations, the most powerful people are not the ones with the C-suite titles, but the ones who control the C-suite's calendar. Executive assistants and chiefs of staff are the ultimate gatekeepers. Building a strong, respectful relationship with the administrative layer of an organization is a master-level move. They know the moods of the leaders, the timing of the budget cycles, and the vibe of the boardroom before anyone else. A case study of a CEO in New York revealed that she promoted her lead project manager specifically because the project manager had the unanimous support of the administrative staff, proving she could lead at every level of the hierarchy. As you move through 2026, your goal is to transition from being a resource to being a partner. A resource is used and replaced. A partner is consulted and retained. This transition happens when you stop asking for permission and start providing informed options. Instead of asking your boss what you should do about a problem, you present 3 scenarios, the potential outcomes of each, and your recommended course of action. You are training them to trust your judgment, which is the prerequisite for autonomy and power. But there is a dark side to influence that we must prepare for. What happens when you've mapped the power, built the board, and secured the sponsor, but you find yourself trapped in the double bind? This is the psychological reality where women who are assertive are labeled abrasive, while those who are collaborative are labeled weak. This narrow corridor of leadership is the final barrier to the executive suite. In the next part, we are going to deconstruct the language of power. We will look at the specific linguistic shifts, vocal tonality, and executive presence tactics that allow you to be both authoritative and liked. We will explore how to handle manterruptions and bropropriating with surgical precision, ensuring that your ideas stay your ideas and your authority remains unquestioned. The way you communicate in high-stakes moments is either a bridge to your next promotion or a wall. We are going to show you how to build the bridge. Building that bridge requires an absolute mastery of the linguistic landscape. In the American workforce of 2026, your words are not just vehicles for information. They are signals of your status within the hierarchy. We must begin by addressing the double bind, the psychological tightrope where women are often penalized for being too assertive, yet overlooked for being too collaborative. To navigate this, you must adopt what sociolinguists call the authoritative-collaborative hybrid. This is a communication style that uses high-status vocal markers paired with high-warmth relational cues. Historical trends in executive coaching suggest that the most successful female leaders in the U.S. don't abandon their collaborative nature. They wrap it in a layer of non-negotiable professional authority. Imagine a professional named Olivia, a senior vice president of strategy at a major logistics firm in Philadelphia. Olivia is in a high-stakes boardroom meeting in mid-2026, discussing the implementation of autonomous delivery fleets. She is surrounded by peers who have a historical tendency to dominate the conversation. As she presents her data, a colleague, let's call him Mark, interrupts her to reiterate a point she just made, effectively bropropriating her insight. In the past, Olivia might have let it slide to avoid conflict. But in 2026, the cost of being invisible is too high. Olivia utilizes the acknowledgement and reclaim tactic. She waits for Mark to finish his sentence, then says with a calm downward inflection, "I'm glad you agree with the data I just presented, Mark." Expanding on that point, the next phase of the rollout is, by acknowledging that he is agreeing with her, she subtly reestablishes ownership of the idea without appearing defensive. She doesn't ask for the floor back. She simply takes it. This brings us to the surgical removal of minimizing language. In the United States, women are socialized from a young age to use softeners to appear more likable. Words like just, actually, kind of, and I feel like act as linguistic sandbags weighing down your authority. When you say, "I just wanted to check in on the report," you are implicitly apologizing for taking up space. When you say, "I actually think we should pivot," the word actually suggests that your opinion is a surprise or a disruption to the norm. In 2026, precision is the new currency. Replace "I feel like this strategy is failing" with "the data indicates this strategy is failing." The first is a subjective emotion that can be dismissed. The second is an objective observation that must be addressed. Step 1 in this linguistic overhaul is the audit of verbal fillers. We often use and like to fill the silence while we think, but silence is actually your greatest ally. High-status individuals are comfortable with the pause. The pause signals that you are not rushed, that you are confident in the weight of your next sentence, and that you are in control of the room's tempo. Practice the 2-second pause before answering a difficult question. This not only gives you time to formulate a strategic response, but also forces the other person to wait on your expertise. It shifts the power dynamic from you being on the defense to you being the arbiter of information. Step 2 is the mastery of vocal tonality. There is a documented trend in the U.S. workforce known as upspeak, ending a declarative sentence with a rising pitch, making it sound like a question. This signals a subconscious need for approval. To project executive presence in 2026, you must practice the downward inflection. End your sentences on a lower note than you began. This small tonal shift transforms a suggestion into a command. It is the sound of a person who does not need to ask if they are right because they have already done the work to ensure they are. Now, let's discuss the manterruption phenomenon. Research from 2026 workplace studies continues to show that women are interrupted significantly more often than men in professional settings. To handle this with surgical precision, you need a 3-tier escalation strategy. Tier 1 is the keep-going method. If someone starts talking over you, do not stop. Continue your sentence at the same volume and pace. Often, the interrupter will realize their error and stop. Tier 2 is the hand signal. A subtle, non-aggressive raising of the hand, while you continue to speak, acts as a visual barrier. Tier 3 is the direct reclaim. If they persist, you stop, look them directly in the eye and say, "I'm going to finish this thought, and then I'd love to hear your perspective." This is not a request. It is a boundary. It demonstrates that you value your own contribution as much as, if not more than, the interruption. Consider the case study of a chief technology officer in San Francisco who noticed her female directors were being silenced in cross-functional sprints. She implemented a no-interruption rule for the first 5 minutes of every presentation. However, the real change happened when she coached her directors on linguistic assertiveness. They moved from "does that make sense?" which puts the burden of understanding on the speaker, to "what questions do you have about this approach?" which assumes the speaker was clear and the burden is now on the audience to engage with the expertise. This shift in the 2026 corporate environment resulted in a measured increase in those directors' influence scores during quarterly 360-degree reviews. We must also talk about the physical manifestation of authority in a hybrid world. In 2026, your digital presence is just as important as your physical one. In Zoom or Teams meetings, your framing matters. If you are positioned too low in the frame, you appear small and submissive. Ensure your camera is at eye level and that you are taking up a significant portion of the screen. When speaking, look directly into the camera lens, not at the faces on the screen. This creates the psychological illusion of eye contact for everyone in the meeting. Use expansive gestures that are visible within the frame. Small, fidgety movements signal anxiety. Broad, purposeful movements signal confidence. Imagine if you treated your professional communication like a high-end product launch. You wouldn't launch a product with "maybe" or "I think." You would launch it with "this is the solution." You are the product. Your expertise is the solution. In the American workforce, those who speak as if they belong in the room are the ones who are eventually invited to lead it. This isn't about being fake. It's about translating your internal competence into an external language that the system recognizes. But there is a specific type of conversation that is the ultimate test of this linguistic mastery: the high-stakes conflict. Whether it's a disagreement over project direction or a direct challenge to your authority, how you handle friction in 2026 determines your ceiling. Most people react to conflict by either leaning in too hard, aggression, or backing away, compliance. The executive approach is tactical empathy. This involves labeling the other person's emotions to de-escalate the tension. It sounds like you're concerned about the budget implications of this move. By naming their fear, you disarm them. You move the conversation from an emotional battlefield to a logical problem-solving session, where you are the facilitator. As we look at the historical trends of the last few years, we see that the women who reach the C-suite are those who have mastered the micro-negotiation of every interaction. They don't just wait for the annual review to assert their value. They assert it in every email, every Slack message, and every 3-minute hallway conversation. They have replaced "sorry for the delay" with "thank you for your patience," shifting the focus from their perceived failure to the other person's virtue. They have replaced "I'll try to get that to you" with "I will have that to you by 4 p.m. Thursday." We have now covered the architecture of influence and the language of power. You have the tools to be seen and heard. But there is one final massive hurdle that many women in the American workforce face, one that can derail even the most strategic career path. It is the systemic challenge of balancing high-level career velocity with personal life, often referred to as the motherhood penalty or the caregiver tax. Even in 2026, the data shows a stark divergence in the career trajectories of men and women after the age of 30. In the next part, we are going to dive deep into the integration strategy. We will explore how to navigate parental leave, how to set ironclad boundaries without sacrificing your high potential status, and how to negotiate for the flexibility that allows you to sustain a 40-year career without burning out. This is the part where we move from surviving the system to making the system work for your life. The strategies we will discuss for managing the Great Integration are the secret sauce of the most enduringly successful women in the United States today. Keep watching, because if you don't master your time and your boundaries, the system will master them for you. To master the Great Integration, you must first recognize that the motherhood penalty and the caregiver tax are not personal failures of time management. They are structural economic realities. Historical trends in the American workforce as of 2026 reveal that for every child a woman has, her potential earnings can decrease by an average of 4%, while men often see a fatherhood bonus, a 6% increase in salary as they are perceived as more stable and committed. This is a cognitive bias deeply embedded in the U.S. corporate subconscious. To navigate this, you cannot rely on the antiquated concept of work-life balance, which implies a zero-sum game where one side must always lose. Instead, high-velocity female leaders in 2026 are utilizing the integration strategy, where professional growth and personal responsibilities are treated as a unified, optimized portfolio. Imagine a professional named Jessica, a vice president of product marketing in Atlanta. It is 2026, and Jessica is preparing to return from a 4-month parental leave. The standard playbook would have her return quietly, apologize for her absence, and work double hours to prove she is still all in. This is the fastest way to hit a career plateau. Instead, Jessica implements the re-entry roadmap. 2 weeks before her return, she schedules brief syncs not with her direct reports, but with her primary sponsor and 2 key cross-functional peers. She doesn't ask for updates. She provides a strategic vision for the next 90 days, based on the market shifts that occurred during her absence. She frames her time away not as a gap, but as a period of high-level observation that allowed her to identify 3 systemic inefficiencies the team missed while in the daily grind. By leading with strategic value, Jessica reframes her return as an upgrade to the department, not a burden to be accommodated. Step 1 of the integration strategy is the establishment of the boundary protocol. To master the Great Integration, you must first recognize that the motherhood penalty and the caregiver tax are not personal failures of time management. They are structural economic realities. Historical trends in the American workforce as of 2026 reveal that for every child a woman has, her potential earnings can decrease by an average of 4%, while men often see a fatherhood bonus, a 6% increase in salary as they are perceived as more stable and committed. This is a cognitive bias deeply embedded in the U.S. corporate subconscious. To navigate this, you cannot rely on the antiquated concept of work-life balance, which implies a zero-sum game where one side must always lose. Instead, high-velocity female leaders in 2026 are utilizing the integration strategy, where professional growth and personal responsibilities are treated as a unified, optimized portfolio. Imagine a professional named Jessica, a vice president of product marketing in Atlanta. It is 2026, and Jessica is preparing to return from a 4-month parental leave. The standard playbook would have her return quietly, apologize for her absence, and work double hours to prove she is still all in. This is the fastest way to hit a career plateau. Instead, Jessica implements the re-entry roadmap. 2 weeks before her return, she schedules brief syncs not with her direct reports, but with her primary sponsor and 2 key cross-functional peers. She doesn't ask for updates. She provides a strategic vision for the next 90 days, based on the market shifts that occurred during her absence. She frames her time away not as a gap, but as a period of high-level observation that allowed her to identify 3 systemic inefficiencies the team missed while in the daily grind. By leading with strategic value, Jessica reframes her return as an upgrade to the department, not a burden to be accommodated. Step 1 of the integration strategy is the establishment of the boundary protocol. In the U.S. workforce, availability is often mistaken for productivity. If you are the person who answers Slack messages at 9 p.m., you are training your organization to treat your time as an infinite resource. In 2026, with the proliferation of asynchronous work tools, the most successful women are setting ironclad dark zones, specific blocks of time where they are unreachable. However, the secret is in the communication. You do not say, "I am offline for childcare." You say, "I have focused execution blocks from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. to ensure high-priority deliverables are met without interruption. For anything urgent, please flag it for my 8 a.m. review." This communicates that your boundaries are for the benefit of the company's output, not just your personal convenience. You are moving from a reactive stance to a proactive management of your own human capital. Step 2 is the negotiation of flexibility as a performance lever. Historically, flexibility was viewed as a perk or a favor granted to mothers. In the 2026 labor market, top-tier talent is framing flexibility as a requirement for peak cognitive performance. Consider a case study of a senior software architect in Austin who negotiated a 4-day work week. She didn't lead with her desire for more time with her family. Instead, she presented a data-backed proposal showing that her most complex deep work tasks, the ones that generated the most intellectual property for the firm, required long, uninterrupted periods of focus that were impossible in a 5-day office cycle. She demonstrated that by shifting to a compressed schedule, she could increase her code deployment frequency by 15%. The potential outcome was a win-win. The company got more value, and she gained 20% of her time back. Step 3 is the elimination of the opt-out narrative. There is a historical trend where managers assume a woman will want less responsibility after a major life event like marriage or parenthood. This is benevolent bias. To combat this, you must be explicit about your ambitions. You must have the ambition conversation every 6 months. You state clearly, "My goal is the senior vice president role within 24 months. I am currently prioritizing the global expansion project to build the necessary track record for that move. Let's discuss the specific milestones I need to hit." By anchoring the conversation in your long-term trajectory, you prevent your manager from making assumptions that would lead to you being protected away from high-stakes, career-making opportunities. Imagine if you viewed your domestic support system as a business operations requirement. High-earning women in the United States are increasingly treating their personal lives with the same level of delegation and optimization as their professional lives. This includes the domestic outsourcing audit. If your time is worth $200 an hour to your company, but you are spending 5 hours a week on $30 an hour tasks, you are mismanaging your personal balance sheet. In 2026, the strategic female leader invests in support, whether that is childcare, household management, or automated services, not as a luxury, but as a necessary reinvestment in her own professional longevity. Let's look at the broken rung in the context of caregiving. Data shows that many women stall at the manager level because they fear the executive level will require a sacrifice they aren't willing to make. However, case studies of female CEOs in the Fortune 500 suggest the opposite. The higher you go, the more control you have over your schedule. The middle management layer is the most restrictive. The strategy, therefore, is to accelerate through the middle as quickly as possible. You do this by becoming a master delegator. You must stop being the person who does the work and start being the person who ensures the work is done. This shift allows you to scale your impact without scaling your hours. We also have to address the legal and policy framework of 2026. With more U.S. states implementing mandatory paid leave and flexible work protections, you must be a student of your own rights. Knowledge of the Family and Medical Leave Act (FMLA) and its state-level expansions is not just for HR. It is a negotiation tool. When you know the legal floor, you can negotiate for the executive ceiling. For example, if your state mandates 12 weeks of leave, you can negotiate for a phased return-to-work program that allows you to work part-time for the first month at full-time pay, framed as a strategic reintegration period. The goal of the Great Integration is to ensure that your career is a marathon, not a sprint that ends in burnout. The American workforce is historically unforgiving, but it is also highly responsive to individuals who command their own value and manage their own boundaries with clinical precision. You are not asking for permission to have a life. You are informing the organization of the conditions under which you will provide them with your highest level of contribution. But even with your boundaries set and your reentry mastered, there is a force that can still halt your progress: the internal culture and the hidden competition within your own company. You can be integrated, authoritative, and high-performing, but if you are playing in a rigged game, you need to know how to spot the signs before you waste years of your prime earning potential. In the next part, we are going to dive into corporate warfare and cultural alignment. Corporate warfare and cultural alignment are the invisible currents that either carry you to the executive suite or pull you under during a reorganization. In the American professional landscape of 2026, the concept of a meritocracy is often used as a convenient fiction to mask the reality of political maneuvering. To succeed, you must understand that the warfare isn't about open conflict. It is about information arbitrage. Corporate warfare and cultural alignment are the invisible currents that either carry you to the executive suite or pull you under during a reorganization. In the American professional landscape of 2026, the concept of a meritocracy is often used as a convenient fiction to mask the reality of political maneuvering. To succeed, you must understand that the warfare isn't about open conflict. It is about information arbitrage, strategic positioning, and the mastery of cultural semiotics. Historical trends show that women are often socialized to avoid office politics, viewing it as a distraction from the work. However, in high-stakes U.S. industries, the politics is the work. If you are not at the table discussing the reorganization, you are likely on the menu. Imagine a professional named Becca, a senior director of operations at a Boston-based biotechnology firm. It is June 2026, and rumors of a massive merger with a European conglomerate have begun to circulate. The traditional meritocratic approach would be for Becca to double down on her department's efficiency metrics to prove her team's indispensability. This is a common strategic error. In the chaos window, the period between a merger announcement and its execution, metrics matter less than alignment with the incoming power structure. Becca realizes that her current boss, the COO, is likely to be phased out in the new regime. If she hitches her wagon solely to his performance, she will be phased out with him. Step 1 in navigating corporate warfare is the political risk audit. You must look at your organization and identify the load-bearing leaders. These are not always the people with the highest titles, but the people whose exit would cause the most structural damage. In 2026, with the rapid integration of AI and decentralized workforces, load-bearing leaders are often those who own the internal knowledge moats, the specific undocumented processes that keep the company running. Once you identify these individuals, you must determine their trajectory alignment. Are they ascending, plateauing, or declining? If you are aligned with a declining leader, you are effectively in a career cul-de-sac. Step 2 is information arbitrage. In the American workforce, power flows toward those who have the most accurate information about the future. Becca begins strategic listening tours across departments that are typically siloed from operations, such as legal and government affairs. She isn't looking for gossip. She is looking for signal. She discovers that the European conglomerate is prioritizing ESG, environmental, social, and governance compliance far more than her current firm. By the time the merger is finalized, Becca has already drafted a proposal to overhaul the supply chain for carbon neutrality. She presents this not as a good thing to do, but as a preemptive integration strategy for the new owners. She has effectively signaled to the new leadership that she is already one of them before they even meet her. This leads us to cultural alignment. Every U.S. company has two cultures, the one written in the employee handbook and the shadow culture. The shadow culture is the set of unwritten rules that dictate who actually gets ahead. Is it a FaceTime culture, where being in the office late is a proxy for commitment? Is it a consensus culture, where making a decision without 12 meetings is seen as abrasive? Historical trends suggest that many high-achieving women struggle when their personal values of efficiency and directness clash with a shadow culture that rewards slow, political consensus building. Consider a case study of a fintech firm in New York. The company's public mission was innovation and disruption, but the shadow culture was risk aversion and tenure. A brilliant female VP of engineering tried to push a radical new architecture that would have saved millions, but required a high upfront risk. She was met with silent resistance and eventually pushed out. She didn't fail because her idea was bad. She failed because she was culturally misaligned. She was trying to play chess in a room full of people playing bridge. In 2026, the most successful women are those who perform a cultural fit test every 6 months. If the gap between the shadow culture and your personal operating system is too wide, the friction will eventually burn you out, regardless of your talent. But what happens when you find yourself in a toxic meritocracy? This is a specific type of U.S. corporate environment where performance is a weaponized term used to justify burnout and the glass cliff. The glass cliff is a historical trend where women are more likely to be appointed to leadership roles during periods of crisis or downturn, when the chance of failure is highest. If they succeed, the company is saved. If they fail, they are the convenient scapegoat for a systemic problem they didn't create. To survive the glass cliff in 2026, you must negotiate for structural safeguards before you accept the role. This means demanding a clear definition of success, a guaranteed budget that cannot be clawed back, and a severance protection that reflects the risk you are taking. You are essentially building an ejection seat into your contract. This isn't about planning to fail. It's about acknowledging the historical trends that suggest the game is tilted against you in crisis scenarios. When the audit reveals that the environment is no longer serving your growth, you must execute the strategic exit. Most professionals wait until they are miserable to start looking for a new role. This is a position of weakness. In 2026, the exit strategy is a power move that should be initiated when you are at the peak of your internal value. This is exit velocity. Imagine if you viewed your current role as a venture capital investment of your time. If the ROI, in terms of skill acquisition, network expansion, and compensation, is declining, it is time to divest. Step by step, the exit strategy looks like this. First, the market value validation. You must interview at least twice a year, even if you don't want to leave. This ensures your perception of your worth is grounded in external reality, not internal gaslighting. Second, the network warming. You reach out to 3 external contacts a month just to provide value, ensuring that when you do need to move, the connections are already active. Third, the quiet migration. You begin shifting your public personal brand, your LinkedIn, and your professional portfolio toward the executive identity you have already built in your mind. We are now at the final stage of this masterclass, the institutional legacy. In the American workforce of 2026, the highest level of career growth is not just about your individual ascent, but about your ability to reshape the institution itself. You have moved from navigating the system to becoming the system. Historical trends show that the most influential women in U.S. history, from the pioneers in the 1970s to the tech titans of 2026, all reached a point where their primary value was no longer their technical output, but their strategic governance. This is the stage where you leverage your power to create a sustainable ecosystem of equity and high performance. Imagine a professional named Diana, the newly appointed Chief Operating Officer of a Fortune 500 manufacturing firm in Ohio. It is late 2026. Diana didn't just get the job. She spent the previous 9 parts of her career journey building the influence, the language, and the political capital to command it. Now that she is in the seat, her challenge is no longer getting ahead. It is staying ahead, while dismantling the structural barriers for the next generation. Diana understands that her legacy is tied to the succession pipeline. If she is the only woman in the C-suite, she is a token. If she brings 5 others with her, she is a transformer. Step 1 of institutional legacy is the systemic audit. You must use your executive authority to look under the hood of your company's compensation and promotion data. In 2026, many U.S. firms use pay equity software to identify gaps, but these tools often miss the promotion gap. Diana implements a real-time equity dashboard that tracks not just what people are paid, but who is being given the high-stakes assignments we discussed in Part 4. She realizes that the hidden bias often happens at the middle manager level. By making this data transparent to the executive committee, she turns a soft HR issue into a hard operational metric. The potential outcome is a cultural shift where managers are held financially accountable for the diversity and growth of their talent pipelines. Step 2 is the institutionalization of mentorship. We have discussed personal boards of directors, but at the legacy stage, you must build these boards into the company's DNA. Diana creates an internal sponsorship market.